Once again, we're finishing the book of Luke in the next couple sessions, or maybe this one, I'm not sure. But what we're looking at is the parables and stories that are unique to the book of Luke. What a treasure we have in the book of Luke. So many of these are things that, what would we have done if we missed these accounts? And the next one I want to look at is the story of Zacchaeus. Now, Zacchaeus even got a song written about him. I mean, Zacchaeus was a wee little man, and a wee little man was he. Of course, we don't use the word we very much unless it's talking about you and me, but we, and he's a tiny little guy. I mean, not like that tiny, I don't think. But anyway, in chapter 19, it tells the story of Zacchaeus, and it says, when Jesus entered and was passing through Jericho, behold, there was a man called by the name of Zacchaeus, and he was a chief tax gatherer, and he was rich. Now, Zacchaeus, a chief tax gatherer, that's like saying he's one of the bigger thieves around, because they'd not only collect what the government wanted, but they'd get a little bit extra for themselves. And so it puts the statement on there, and he was rich. Now I can imagine, I don't know the story of Zacchaeus in the background, but I'm going to use a little, hopefully sanctified imagination. I can imagine Zacchaeus being a little guy. He probably got picked on in school. Maybe growing up, he got kind of ridiculed, picked on. The bullies would, they want to beat up somebody, they'd practice by beating up Zacchaeus, or whatever. I can imagine him having all the authority of the Roman army behind him and going to get your money and just thinking, yeah, you turkey, you remember in third grade, you beat me up. Well, look at this. Give me the money, or you'll be visited later tonight by guys with swords and chariots and horses. I don't know. But anyway, I can imagine Zacchaeus kind of glorying in his position and using it to his advantage. He was a chief tax gatherer, and he was rich. And it says, but in this case, Jesus was coming through Jericho. Verse 4, and he ran on ahead and climbed up into a sycamore tree in order to see him. He was about to pass through that way. And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for today I must stay at your house. I can imagine the repulsion by, Jesus' disciples or anybody else around that knew who Zacchaeus was. What in the world are you talking to him for? You're going to go to his house? And he hurried and came down and received him gladly. How many people do you think judged and said, well, Jesus is going to his house because he's rich? That's the reason he's going to his house. He's just schmoozing with the rich people, trying to get some advantage there. Well, Zacchaeus, when he heard Jesus wanted to come to his house, hurried and came down. When they saw it, they all began to grumble, saying, he has gone to be with the guest of a man who is a sinner. He's a sinner. I mean, they were really ticked off. But Zacchaeus stopped and said to the Lord, behold, Lord, this happens just because Jesus said, I'm going to come to your house. Behold, Lord, half of my possessions I will give to the poor. And if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I will give back 4 times as much. 4 times as much. If he defrauded anyone, I got a pretty good idea. He's defrauded somebody. I'm pretty sure of that, because he was a chief tax gatherer, and these guys were not honest in that day. Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house, because he too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which was lost. Once again, we're saying, who's justified? The one that talks about all their goodness, or the one that understands that they are a sinner and are asking for mercy and are willing to respond to that? Zacchaeus was so moved, he wanted to make restitution, pay back people that he had wronged. And so Jesus, in seeing this and this change of heart, says salvation has come to his house. Interesting there how he describes Zacchaeus. He says salvation has come to this house. And Jesus has come, he says, to seek and to save that which was lost. Well, I'm going to skip through. We're going to come to the end of Luke. And there's a couple of things that are described here that aren't in any other Gospels. And one of them is, it has a little personal thing with me. It was in Luke 23, on the cross, verse 39, one of the criminals who were hanged there was hurling abuse at him, saying, are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us. But the other answered and said, rebuking him, said, do you not even fear God, since you are in the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we are receiving what we deserve for our deeds, but this man has done nothing wrong. And he was saying, Jesus, remember me when you come in your kingdom. And he said to him, Jesus said to him, truly I say to you, today you shall be with me in paradise. And then it talks about darkness fell on the earth and the sun was obscured and whatever. But we don't see in the other Gospels. There's talk about he was crucified between 2 thieves and that kind of thing. But here we see this. This is the only place we see this interchange. there was one thief on the cross which was accusing Jesus or, challenging him, says, hey, if you're the Son of God, or if you're the Christ, save yourself and us. Do something. If you're the Christ, do something. And the other one said, listen, don't you even fear God at this point? We're under the same sentence of condemnation. We indeed justly. We deserve what we're getting. But this man, he's done nothing wrong. And then he asked for mercy. He asked Jesus, remember me when you come in your kingdom. We see how Zacchaeus was called, salvation has come to this house because there was a change of heart and he wanted to make restitution. This guy was just saying, you've not done anything wrong, and remember me. And Jesus said, truly I say to you today, you will be with me in paradise. And there's all kinds of things in modern day where they say, well, truly I say to you today. That's not, I really believe he's saying, truly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise. We're both going to die. And just by this simple acknowledgement that you've made here of me and acknowledging who I am and actually Jesus' righteousness is what happened here, he's saying, you'll be with me today in paradise. And then right after that, of course, we see Jesus makes his final statement, Father, into thy hands I commit my spirit. And he gave up and breathed his last. And he did die that day. And I believe that this man was seen by Jesus in paradise. So we see that the only account we have of that is in the book of Luke. And also, we get to chapter 24, and there are several things in chapter 24, the last chapter of Luke, that talk about things that aren't mentioned in any other of the Gospels. I want to start with chapter 24, verse 27. Well, we'll start a little bit before that. There's these two guys, verse 13. Two of them were going that very day to a village named Emmaus, and this is the day that it seemed, Jesus had been reported to have risen from the dead by Mary and Martha, and Mary and the other ladies, Joanna actually, and Mary the mother of James, and that they'd gone to the tomb and saw that he was alive, and Peter and John had ran over there and didn't find him. They ran over there and didn't find him in the tomb. And that same day, it says, behold, two men were going that very day to a village named Emmaus, which was about 7 miles from Jerusalem. And they were conversing with each other about all the things which had taken place. And it came about that while they were conversing and discussing, Jesus himself approached and began traveling with them. But their eyes were prevented from recognizing him. So they're walking along the road with Jesus, but they don't know who he is. And they're talking about all the things that have been happening. And Jesus said to them, what are these words that you are exchanging with one another as you are walking? And they stood still, looking sad. And one of them, named Cleopas, answered and said to him, are you the only one visiting Jerusalem and unaware of the things which have happened here in these days? And he said, Jesus wasn't unaware. And he said to them, what things? I love this. He's just kind of toying with them, wanting to find out what they're really talking about. And they said to him, the things about Jesus the Nazarene, who was a prophet, mighty in deed and word in the sight of God and all the people, how the chief priests and our rulers delivered him up to sentence of death and crucified him. But we were hoping that it was he who was going to redeem Israel. Indeed, besides all of this, it is the third day since these things happened. But also some women among us amazed us when they were at the tomb early in the morning and did not find his body. They came saying that they had also seen a vision of angels who said that he was alive. Only Luke describes the detail of this in these two guys. And it says, some of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just exactly as the women had also said, because they didn't believe the women. But him they did not see. And he said to them, O foolish men. Now, this is Jesus talking to the two guys he's walking with. He said to them, O foolish men and slow of heart to believe in all that the prophets have spoken. So Jesus is saying, this was all prophesied. This is, you should have known this. You should have been aware of this. Not even that, not just that, but even the things that Jesus said to many of them before his death. Verse 26, was it not necessary for the Christ to suffer these things and to enter into his glory? When he's asking a question, he's not looking for information. He's making a declaration here. It says, basically saying, don't you know he had to suffer before he'd enter into his glory? And in verse 27, here's just an amazing statement. And beginning with Moses and with all the prophets, he explained to them the things concerning himself in all the scriptures. This is an amazing thing. He's walking along the road with these guys to Emmaus, and they don't recognize him. All of a sudden, he's asking what's going on. They explain to him about all that's going on with Jesus. Well, he is Jesus. And he finally says to them, you're foolish and slow of heart. Don't you understand all that was spoken about in the prophets, all the things that were prophesied about basically me? And then it says he begins to explain to them all the things concerning himself that were in the scriptures. What an amazing Bible study that would have been, walking with Jesus, and he's all of a sudden explaining everything out of the Old Testament about how he had to suffer and rise again and all of this stuff. And so we'll pick it up next time with the rest of this chapter.